Hey, so as a developer, you are the direct beneficiary of everything that goes right in DevOps. It's a lot like putting you in a cookie factory and saying, hey, all of the cookies that come out of this factory are for you. Your first question should be, can we make more cookies? Hey, what's up? I'm Will Button from DevOps for Developers. So today we're talking about how you as a developer can influence and make the DevOps experience better in your environment because you're the direct recipient of it. So that may involve a couple of different things. And I think the first place to start is really just look around and be brutally honest and say, what sucks about this? Because something's going to suck, right? It's not going to be a perfect environment, and that's okay because that shows that there's room for improvement. And that's the really interesting thing about DevOps is there's not like a handbook of do this, then do this, and then do this to make the DevOps thing work. It's very specific to each organization because it's that gap of what are the steps and processes for you as a developer to get the code from your laptop or your workstation out into production. And that's going to be different for everyone. So that's why it's kind of unique. If you look back at your current process, you're probably going to identify some things that you think could be better. Now, here's the thing that you don't do. This is very, very common, and it's one thing I'm very against. You identify a problem and immediately go out and buy or download or install some software application to solve that problem. And that's the absolute worst way to do it. Let me explain to you why. In reality, any DevOps problem you're trying to solve, that problem, the root cause of that problem is probably not that you don't have enough third-party software in your stack. All right? Just to be perfectly honest. So how do you solve this problem then? The first thing to do is start talking about the problem. Ask other people, see if they see it the same way that you see it. See if they have other workarounds or processes that they're doing to make it better. And then get a hold of the other side, right? Because it's a problem for you, but ultimately there is someone who's the recipient of that process. And I'm talking specifically about things like, let's just talk about the deployment process itself. You write, build, and deploy your code, and then it goes off to someone else who operates and maintains it. What's that experience look like for them? And that's the reason I'm hesitant to install software to solve problems, is because a lot of times it changes the process for the end user of your product, whether that's your customers or whether it's your IT team or a dedicated DevOps team. Whoever it is, it's going to change it for them too. So you want to make sure that what you do is actually helping them as much as it's helping you. And in a worst case scenario, make sure it's not making the problem worse for them or creating a new problem for them. Now that communication process is really like the fundamental process or the fundamental skill of DevOps is communicating to make sure that everyone's talking about the same problem. And whenever you're talking about it, that everyone understands it at the same level, all right? Because then once you have that conversation going, you can start to discuss how to make it better. And one of the big things that I see in doing this is a lot of times you probably already have the tools to make it better. You just haven't implemented that particular feature in your tool chain, or you haven't change the way that you're doing this process to implement things that already exist in your pipeline. Let me give you a specific example to see if I can't help make that more clear. Let's say that you're building your application and it runs and executes in your company's physical data center and it runs on dedicated servers, but you want to move to something that's more dynamic and scalable like a Docker-style containerized solution. So the problem that you, or the solution that you propose to this is to migrate to AWS, right? Because in AWS, you can run a Dockerized solution relatively easy. You get the scalability. There's no real, like the only limiting factor to what you can do in AWS is how much you're willing to pay. But in doing so, you're cutting off ties with your IT team who runs that data center. And so if you go and have that conversation with them and say, hey, we'd really like to move to a containerized solution, you might just find that they've been looking for an excuse to put in a Docker orchestration system, whether that's, Docker Swarm or Kubernetes or something like that. Or you may find that there's a specific regulatory requirement that prevents you from doing that, or that would cause you much pain and suffering in the future if you were to pursue that path. And so you just communicate with them and find out what an ideal solution for all parties involved might be. And I think the last thing I want to touch on in this video is, as a developer, why do you even care? And as I mentioned in the beginning, you're the direct recipient of making this process better and more scalable, more performant, and easier for you to do. So that's motivation in itself. But also, as a developer who benefits from this, you have a vested interest in making this successful. So it's important for you to learn what things are available in DevOps. And by knowing which tools and technologies are available, you don't have to master them yourself per se, but understanding them is going to allow you to understand what possibilities exist. And then when you have those communications or those conversations with other people, you'll be able to reference common ground and have discussions about the same set of technologies to build the right solution. And I know that a lot of people like to hear, like, if I'm going to do DevOps or get involved into DevOps, what is the most important thing I need to do? And whenever they ask that question, a lot of times they're really looking for me to recommend a piece of software or a tool or a framework, and I hesitate to do that because it is so different. I think the most important skill for DevOps is communication. Talk about the things that suck. Say, hey, this really sucks. I wish it were better. And then have that conversation with everyone who's involved in that process. The developers on your team, the developers on other teams, the ops personnel who are supporting this, the IT teams who manage the back-end infrastructure, so that you get their perspective on it as well. And then once you understand that and you've isolated the problem and you understand it from all perspectives, then the right tool is going to start to evolve and become apparent in solving that problem. And once you have that, that's the tool to go focus on. That's the thing to learn to do the DevOps thing. Once it's done, you're off to the next problem. You start the process all over again. If you found this video helpful, do me a favor, click the like button down below and subscribe to my channel to see more topics or more videos on DevOps for developers. I'll see y'all next time.